Hey everyone, welcome to Aquascape. Today we're going to be setting up a low maintenance betta tank. So I'll begin by adding my main components of the hardscape, which happen to be some stones I found while on a hike. They're just really cool stones. They have a lot of jagged edges and these really cool flecks of rust from the iron that's inside of them. When adding your hardscape, remember to think of how the flow might affect the placement of certain features, like how your wood locks into the rocks, how certain pebbles are going to get kind of hidden in those little nooks and crannies. When scaping your tank, the goal is to replicate nature, so try and think of the way that nature would scape the tank. And again, also keep in mind the overall flow and composition of the tank that you're building. I'll also be using this piece of Malaysian driftwood that I've had for years. It's been in so many tanks, and I've had it in betta tanks, Amazon tanks. It's been around. I'll be using sand in this scape since I'm only going to be using epiphyte plants, so there's no need for soil or any fancy stuff like that. Just sand. I like to use a coarse grained sand. It relieves a lot of headaches that come from using a lot more fine grained sands, and they just look really cool. I use a brush to spread the substrate more evenly, as well as slope it to the back to create a sense of depth. When you fill the tank with water, it has a magnifying effect, bringing everything in the back a lot closer than it really is. So sloping the substrate up to the back really gives a great sense of depth and really makes your tank look that much bigger. Next, I like to add pebbles and smaller pieces of rock around the hardscape, which are just smaller bits of the same rock, but if you don't have that, you can break some of your rock up, or you can use gravel too. Now this does two things. It adds a more natural look, but it also helps break up the line between the rocks and the substrate. Next, I'll be adding the plants, and for that, I'll be using various types of Java fern, such as trident and narrowleaf. You can use other ones, these are just the ones I had laying around. These plants are epiphytes, so you don't need to plant them in the soil. In fact, if you do, they'll just rot. So wedge them in between your hardscape to achieve the look that you want. Next, I'll be using various Nubias. I have a Nubias nana and a Nubias nana petite. Again, they're also epiphytes, so just wedge them where you can. I'm also using some Christmas moss, but you can use Java moss or no moss. I just like the effect it gives, and it's a great low light, low tech plant that gives a huge impact and just makes the scape look that much more natural. Later you'll see I added a few small pieces of Hydrocodal tripartita. It's not really a low tech plant, but I had some laying around from some plants I trimmed in another tank. Also, because this tank won't be using a filter, I'm adding some pothos and various philodendron to help with the nitrogen cycle. If you're a beginner or new to the hobby, I would advise using a filter, as not having one definitely makes things a bit harder, and way more of a headache. Especially for the beginner hobbyist, it includes a lot more water changes and watching those parameters. Definitely not low maintenance. I didn't add any, but I'd advise adding some floating plants to discourage jumping. Bettas are great jumpers. Not only do they discourage jumping, but they look really awesome, and they help filter the tank as well. Now let's add the star of the show. I haven't chosen a name for him yet, so if you have any ideas, leave them in the comment section below.